Hello everyone. Let me see, make sure. Okay, mic's working. How you guys doing? My name is Brittany Lewis. I'm a professional illustrator and graphic designer, and Sundays is the day that I work on my dream project, the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. So welcome to this week's Paint With Me Live. We are going to be jumping right on back into the Three of Cups from the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. Not Three of Cups, the Four of Cups from the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. But before we get started, please do me a huge favor. If you enjoy seeing me work live, if you enjoy hearing about the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, if you just want to support me, please hit the like button. That helps me out a whole lot. If you have not yet, make sure that you subscribe, because I go live twice a week. On Wednesdays, we do Bring Your Own Project live, which is much more chill. We just work, study, vibe, whatever it is that you're doing. I work, listen to some music, and I hope that you guys come and work with me as well. And then on Sundays, we do Paint With Me Live. Right now, for both streams, we've been working on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot, but for Wednesday streams, we'll actually be switching it up as time progresses, but that one is a little less chatty. This one is definitely more interactive. So if you guys have questions, I am watching the chat so I can see you guys interact. And shout out to PL, who is always early. I really appreciate you for being here. So let's get into it. So we are actually, before we do get into it, we actually hosted a giveaway last Sunday. So if you have not had an opportunity to check that out, please be sure to go to last Sunday's live stream, where I explained all the rules about how to enter. That giveaway is closed, and I do have a winner, so I'll be announcing that a little bit later in the stream. But until then, let's get on into this Three of Cups. Now, I have not worked on this card at all since last Sunday. I actually did work on the not three, I don't know why I keep calling it the Three of Cups, the Four of Cups. I have not worked on this. I did earlier today, just before I began or setting up for the stream officially. I was actually kind of looking at where the male character's hair, like I had his, I'll show you just a second, I had his hair in blue. I didn't really like how it was reading in the scene. It just didn't feel right to me, so I just did a quick switch with hue and saturation and luminosity, changed it to a more natural color, I guess, but it just felt a little bit better, kind of balanced out the scene a little bit more, and it was less competitive with the green. So whenever I'm doing these compositions, I do lay down flats, which allows me to sort of set the color tone, but things change, you know, as the picture progresses or as the image progresses. So sometimes I'll put something in and may not look at the image for like a week in this case, and I'll come back to it and we'll see things that I would like to improve. There are some other bits and pieces about this particular image that I would like to correct and change, but I am actually going to wait until the end to see if I still feel that way about it as I sort of move my way through the illustration. Now, again, I have not, other than changing the color of the hair, I have not really worked on this at all. So we're just going to pick right back up with our male character, to sort of defining some of the shadows and giving just a little more contrast, because he is closer to the camera, so he is much more in the foreground than our main character. So I want to make sure that you know, he reads as such. So when we do that, we sort of play a little bit with hue and saturation, meaning the color and how vivid that color shines through. And so I want to make sure that he's not, so right now our focus is on the young woman, which is what we want, right? But we still want to be able to have a technically sound image. So specifically where I'm referring to is the shadow in his arm as well as under his hands. And so we'll work on that a little bit. It's not going to take long. Even the chest, this chest area really doesn't need to be rendered too much. Everything doesn't have to be rendered, and that's that helps a lot, right? So we have something overly rendered, it becomes overly stimulated, and we want to sort of direct the eye to the position that we want this eye to show up. So right now it's sort of thinking about it. I'm trying to get to my reference image that we created a while back with the 3D models and the forest scene. And so by doing so, we'll be able to get a better idea, a better sense of how strong these shadows can go based on the way that we set that scene up. And we'll come back to this particular reference. This is the Knight of Cups, because I'm going to be using bits and pieces of his armor to create sort of the outfit of our male character. So before we get to that though, let's work on these shadows just a bit. So I hope you guys have had a great week. It's been an interesting week. I don't know, it felt like time is kind of flying by. I have no idea what I did this week other than stream Wednesday. I don't know, the days just sort of escaped me. But I'm glad to be here. Of course, Sundays is absolutely my favorite day of the week too, specifically because I set aside this time to work on the Cosmic Gateway Tarot, and I get quite a bit done. So even after the streams, typically what I will do is sort of take a break. I might go make dinner or run to the grocery store or something like that, and then I'll come back and work on this image or any of the whichever image it is I'm working on. But I just love being able to sort of set aside, just the time to do this, right? All right, so I am what I did was selected the shadow color. So right now it's a dark brown. This will print very darkly, but it's not quite dark enough. So what I am going to do really quickly is select the outline of our character. I can actually just select his arm if I wanted to, but for right now this seems to be good enough. And what I'm going to do is, with that color selected, I'm going over to my hue, saturation, and value menu, which is at the top right hand part of the screen. I'm going to keep the hue the same, I'm going to keep the saturation the same, but I am going to darken. And to do that, I'm just hitting a down arrow. I can also move the lever back and forth, but I'm hitting a down arrow just to sort of slightly darken it, because I don't want to go super dramatic, just a little bit darker than where we are. So right now, even that's too dark, right? I just kind of want to make a gradual sort of decrease in the light, and just in this particular area, right? And anywhere that I want to emphasize like a darker shadow, right? So maybe even in here, it's just a little bit darker, right? And then around his elbow, and then we'll blend that out. And if I want to go darker after I zoom out for a bit, I can do that, but I want to do it gradually. I don't want to just sort of jump in, because it may not require that much effort, right? But I do want to emphasize that his arm is under a what is this, a vest, right? So he'll kind of create a little bit of a shadow like so. That'll elevate the shape of his vest. And so we'll just kind of do that and play with it, go back and forth. You guys have seen me sort of move through, or I always say I'm not reaching for perfection, right? So we're just sort of trying out things to see what works, what sticks. Sometimes that allows me to create these happy accidents. And we'll just keep going, right? If I like it, we'll keep it. If I don't, then we'll change it up. But so now I'm grabbing my blend tool. This one specifically is smudgy, and this one is one from the artist Eric Anthony. I don't remember what brush pack it is, but I feel like he still sells brushes. So if you guys are interested in these particular brushes, I would highly recommend researching the artist Eric Anthony. He does have I believe he has a YouTube channel as well. But I like his brushes, so I use them more than most. I do for sure use them more than most. So these are sort of my default brushes. Now all I'm doing now is just adding a just very, very subtle shadow, right? Very, very subtle to sort of the back area. It's not showing up in the reference, so I don't want to do anything too harsh or too developed or too rendered or anything like that, because again, this particular aspect is not necessary at all. What I do want to do is go back up to his beard, because now that I'm looking at it, I want to make sure that we have the planes of his face expressed in the way that, of course, it doesn't read as flat, right? So we'll do something like this. Doesn't have to be anything super duper fancy or anything like that. So again, I hope you guys are having have had a great week, and I hope that this week coming up is going to be good to you as well. I don't remember what I did this week. I have no idea. Life has just been sort of life, and I see this a lot, especially with people of like millennials, which I am a millennial. I see this a lot. We're experiencing quite a lot, right? As adults, we are sort of going through a lot. A lot of us are pivoting. A lot of us are starting over, which is certainly a sentiment that I am, or something that I am experiencing in life now. Just sort of starting over and, redoing, repivoting, rethinking, all of that. So if you're in that boat, don't worry. I think we're gonna be all right. I think we're gonna be all right. So I've seen that a lot. So if you're having a hard time right now, you're not alone. You're not alone at all. But we just got to keep going and, keep trying and pivot, try to do things, or just relax. Maybe this is the time for us, for those of us who are sort of experiencing a little bit of a standstill in life. The way that I'm approaching it is that for me, this seems to be the best opportunity for us to sort of dream, right? Because what was working or what we were taught would work for us as adults is not working anymore, right? That whole system is being dismantled in front of our eyes. So if you are in a point in your life where you're sort of feeling like you're at a standstill, enjoy the standstill, right? Because it's not always going to be this way, but use it and make the most of it. So to me, the way that I do that is this is sort of the time to dream. So being able again to work on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot sort of helps me in that, right? I know again it's taken me a very long time. So I started this project. For those of you who are new here, started this project in 2019. It has been a long process. I've been working on it off and on though. So I haven't been working it consistently since 2019, just sort of off and on during that time. And, now I'm sort of, or I started to set aside specific time for this project June 30th of last year, which is when I began to live stream. And I did that to hold myself accountable, right? Because in my mind, if I say I'm going to live stream, then I need to be present, regardless to whether it's just me, right? Or it's a few of us. And so thankfully you guys have found this stream, whether again you're watching this live or the replay. Of course, I absolutely appreciate you for being here, but this sort of what I had to do, right? Make time for the thing that I want to do. And so in this standstill that I am currently experiencing, as life is throwing all kinds of curveballs, I'm sort of looking at it as an opportunity to dream and plant seeds for the future, right? So all of that begins today. Now you can feel it, feel the woe is me. It's perfectly okay. You can be overwhelmed. That is completely okay, but don't stay in that space, right? So that is my word of advice. Do not stay in that space. Feel it for sure, right? Don't bottle it up. Don't sort of hide away from those emotions, from that overwhelm, from those fears or any of that. But don't stay in that space, right? So it's like, okay, all right, I feel it. This sucks. But now it's time for us to figure out a new game plan, figure out something new. So I think we're sort of in this space where we're going to have to be very creative about how we approach life, right? Because again, a lot of the things that we were raised to believe was the right path, and probably was at that time, are no longer relevant to us, or no longer working, right? So we have to sort of find a new way to navigate this thing called life, and try not to stress out too much, right? Try not to panic too much. Because it's going to be okay. I believe that it's going to be all right. All right. So what I've just done was just very minor things, right? I sort of added a highlight to the back of his neck because I'm noticing in my reference there is a little bit of light that's shining here as well as the top of his head. So I need to go back and sort of lighten up his hair in the area, but I have not touched that yet. I did the back of his neck. I also sort of intensified the shine on his arm just to give us a little more contrast. Again, with our female character, she's a lot more rendered. She's a lot more cleaner. A lot cleaner, not a lot more cleaner. She's a lot cleaner. So she's fully fleshed out, and we want to make sure that our male character looks equally clean, but not necessarily competes with her in this scene, because he's not the main thing going on. We do want to focus on what he's holding, as well as what our young woman character is doing, right? So she's paying attention to her singing bowls. He is offering her a new one, and whether or not she accepts it, I don't know. It depends on the reading and what comes up in your reading. But I mentioned this a lot. Being able to sit and this helps too, right? Being able to sit and imagine stories for my characters is so much fun. I cannot begin to express to you how much I enjoy doing this, right? So it's like, I guess I approach it as like creative writing. So it's like, okay, have this card. This card typically means XYZ, right? So my first thought is, well, depending on the card, what is the first sort of keyword that comes to mind? In this particular case, the phrase was, I can't remember what the phrase was, but the sentiment was that she was only focused on her situation, right? So she's very focused, a little bit detached from everything that's going on around her. So in that, I'll say, okay, so if that's the case, how can I illustrate that? Now, in this case, we are sort of leaning heavily into the source material. This deck is inspired by the Rider-Waite-Smith. And the reason that I did that was because the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot is one of the most widely written about tarot decks in circulation, right? And so I wanted the new reader as well as the intermediate and expert reader to be able to use this in conjunction with, in tandem with whatever decks they were used to reading with or are learning in the process of, using this deck. I just feel like it would be an easier transition for anyone who is, again, learning tarot to be able to jump into this one and not necessarily have all kinds of wild meanings that aren't necessarily that are too far away from the source material. So even with that though, I still try to stretch and tell a little more story. So in this case, rather than having, and I'll show you the original, rather than having this sort of mystery hand reach out from the clouds, that hand belonging to the Ace of Cups in the Rider-Waite-Smith, what I wanted to do was sort of tell the story, right? I wanted to give that hand a body. I wanted it to look a part of the scene and not just sort of this mystery hand, right? I didn't want it to be too metaphysical in nature, because this hand is sort of reaching out from the heavens. It could be something like an angel. It could be, something from the cosmos. I'm not really sure. As soon as it comes up, I'll show you. But again, I wanted to ground it, right? I wanted it to feel much more grounded, because now that I'm speaking this out loud, if we are looking at the hand of the Four of Cups from the Rider-Waite-Smith, it does feel very ethereal. It does feel something from the heavens, but he's just not paying any attention. So that could be one way that we look at that. So if you already have the base knowledge of the way that the original card looks, you may read that, you may add that to the context of this particular card. So whereas in the original we have this very ethereal hand, in this one maybe this person is an angel, right? Maybe this person is here to save them, maybe not, we never know. But I like being able to do that with these cards, because again, it's just fun, right? And I think it adds a little more richness to the stories. Now of course I did not go into so much of that with the major arcana cards, because those are archetypes. So those are the main energy cards. So those represent what they represent. And I'll show you guys, for those of you who have not seen this, or just as a reminder, what the Cosmic Gateways Tarot looks like. So with these cards, of course, I'm working on card number 40 and 41. So we have 39 complete. So it's coming along pretty well. I really, again, enjoy working on this. This is a dream project, and it's right on time because my canvas is auto saving. So this is not all of the cards, but I feel like this gives you a great sort of feeling of sort of the vibe of the deck itself. I started this, my first two cards I finished November 2019. Then life happened. Took a little bit of a break, and I jumped back in 2020. And so I've been working on it off and on ever since then. And again, setting aside this time on Sundays to work, which started a year ago, has helped sort of make some really good progress. Now of course it's still not going as fast as I would dream it to go, but I think everything happens sort of in divine time, and I'm kind of glad that it is sort of taking me a little bit of a while, because I get to meet you, right? I get to connect with you guys a little bit more. I get to draw you in, and more, you guys get more time to learn about the process and more time to learn about this particular deck and this particular project. So I'm really excited about it. I still have not figured out what to do about the printing because of the tariffs and things like that. I have done more research into that. So if I were to go into sort of printing overseas, just sort of calculating based on what the number is now, child, because it changes. It has gone from, I think, what was it, 20% to like 145%, and now it's 30% tax. I could not imagine having spent, like, let's say $10,000 as a round number, having spent $10,000 to have a project manufactured. I've got the specs right. It looks good. It's ready to go. The packaging is exactly what I want it to be. It gets to my home or to my office or whatever the case is. And then I have to pay 145% on top of that. So luckily for now, it's lower. Hopefully by the time that this goes into print, there will not be a tariff. I don't know. That might be wishful thinking, but that is something I would love to put into the atmosphere. But for right now, it's at 30%. So what that means is, if I spend that $10,000 to have it printed and manufactured in China, I will have to then pay an additional $3,000 in order for me to receive the cards, right? So that is something. So like I said, because it's taken so long, it sort of is a blessing in disguise, because it would be heartbreaking, right? Or would have been heartbreaking if it were in production and at the time that they decided it's got to be 145%. I get the cards and it's like I don't have 100, you know, I don't have an additional 145% of whatever I spent. So right now it's okay. Hopefully by the time again this is ready to print, all of that'll be sorted out, child. It's a whole mess. But I am still actively looking for printers within the United States. Again, and I was doing that before the tariff thing was a thing, right? I was doing that because, again, if I have a large project, because I'll be spending quite a bit of money to get these printed. If I have a large project and let's say communication wanes, worst case scenario, right? It'll be easier for me to sort of get to that place, sit down with the people who are printing my cards, look at the cards and all of that, and sort through it in person as opposed to sort of doing the video calls and all that goes along with printing overseas. So we'll see. We'll see in just a second. Hold on one second. I got a phone. All right. So that's sort of what I'm going through at this time, or sort of what I'm looking at. Not necessarily going through, but what I'm sort of looking at and weighing the options of is sort of where to get this printed, where to get it printed at what I imagine it to look like, right? Because I would love for this to have gilding. I would love for it to be you know, special, like the magnetic box and all of that. So I had done a lot of research prior to, maybe within like the first year of doing this project. The goal was to have it done that following year. I think the manufacturer, one in particular, I think she knew, because this was an area of their expertise, right? She knew that it wouldn't be done in a year. So she was able to sort of give me information in that regard. I'm sure all the prices and things like that have changed since then. So we'll just sort of see what that looks like. We'll see how that goes. For now, we still have quite a few cards to go. So we'll see. Right? All right. So let's jump back in. Alrighty. So now I'm pretty happy so far with the way that the male character is looking. I don't necessarily have to do a whole lot to his hands until I add the brass bowl, because from then he'll have a shadow sort of underneath his hand where that bowl sort of sits. So we'll play a little bit with that, but for right now he looks okay. I'm saving their feet for last. I've done that with the young woman character as well as the male character, because I just don't feel like dealing with it. So no particular rhyme or reason. So for the time being, I think what we're going to do is work on his armor. So again, I'm going to be using the Knight of Cups as a reference for the armor for this particular card. So let's get into that. So we're going to use this reference. I did change the color just a bit, but what I'm looking for as I'm using this particular card for the character in the Four of Cups is I'm looking for the texture. I'm sort of looking for this mud cloth design that I did. I'm sort of also looking for the way that I did his sleeves. So how did I do that? I have no idea. I don't really recall. So we're gonna figure it out. I believe what I did, and so this will sort of show up in this area here as well as this one. And I kind of want his strap to have this texture. So let's start there. Let's work on that. I think what I did, and if I didn't do it, then we're going to make it work anyway. So the first thing I'm going to do is, before I get into any of that, first things first, let me go ahead and combine these two layers. So this is the highlight layer that I added to the man's hair and beard. So we're going to merge that so we can have, fewer layers. Now what I'm going to do is find sort of his, the right layer for this particular color. So this is his vest. So I must have it on the, let's see if I have it on. There he is. So I have his strap as its own thing, which is very wise. Good job. Glad I did that. What I'm going to be doing now is just cleaning up the flats for this, right? So we're going to clean up the flats. I'm going to go in here and just sort of tighten up where I have color. So for instance, this sort of bends like that. We're just tightening all this up, fixing it as best we can. Where I have this brown mud cloth, it doesn't really look great, so I'm going to take my eraser, a strong hard eraser like so, and I'm just going to make a nice crisp line just like that. And wherever I have some white showing, I'm just going to clean that up on its appropriate layer like so. Alrighty, so grabbing my brush, I'm just tightening this up, right? I'm just sort of cleaning this up. And I'll show you guys, so Wednesday what we did was worked on the Four of Swords. And so my whole goal with Wednesday for that particular card was just to get the flats done, right? So again, I do flat layers because that helps me to tell a color story. That helps me to sort of establish what things will be what color, so that when it's time for me to go into rendering, right, adding details and things like that, I have at least that much information, right? Now I can change it like I did with the hair for this particular character because the blue hair didn't work, right? So because of that, I'm able, because it's typically when it's a flat color, I can change it relatively quickly. With this one, because the hair was mostly the same color, I didn't have any like weird effects or anything like that, so I was able to just go into hue and saturation and clean that up. So all I'm doing is just sort of cleaning up my layers, just sort of tightening up different areas so that when I go to select it, it's all, you know, exactly what I needed to do. I don't have to do this a little bit later. All right, so the layer that I really want to clean up right now, because this is the one I want to work on, is the back strap. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, again, clean this up as best I can. And we'll come back and tighten it up a little bit later. And I'll rotate the canvas. For instance, right now I'm not able to get like a straight line the way that the canvas was tilted. So I'm just going to rotate this bad boy and then approach it this way, right? And all of this is one color. Again, this is sort of a baseline color. Now, the way that I feel like I did that strap on, or the sort of this snakeskin texture on the Knight of Cups, is I feel like what I did was I added a gradient, I think, right? And from there, I took what looks like a chalk brush and I sort of blended out some of the colors so that they sort of move into each other. I created a grid, and then it looks like within each grid, just to give it that puffy look, I go into sort of the angle of these diamonds and I add a shadow color, and depending on where or what part of the gradient it's on, that'll kind of change the color of the shadow, because the gradient sort of reflects what the light is doing, right? And then on top of that, just to add a little more nuance and a little more depth to this, I go in with a darker color, right, darker than my gradient, and then a highlight color, and that gave me this nice, neat bubble textured look, right? And then on top of that, it looks like just me speculating, it looks like I put in some speckles, right? So I do that with one of my airbrush, and that shows up throughout. So if we're looking at this nice and zoomed in, I'll make this bigger so you can see. There's a lot of speckling. There's a lot of water texture. There's a lot of texture in his costuming, and that is to give the illusion that these are different types of materials, right? So again, when you're working with digital, you can use brushes that are not necessarily intended for one purpose to be very creative about how you express something for a completely different purpose, right? So within his breastplate, for example, I have these scratches, but all of these are water brushes, the same brushes that I use in the tree. Same with here. So it looks like I lean very heavily into a chalk brush, which is nice. Looks like I used the water brush for the mud cloth. Of course, I used the chalk brush in different colors, and it gave me exactly the look that I was going for, right? So we're going to try to recreate this this arm here. It may take me a little while, and if we make mistakes, that's perfectly okay. That's sort of part of the process, and all art is a process. It all goes through a process, right? I was actually watching, there's a artist by the name of Crayola. I used to watch him years ago, right? For whatever reason, it came up. I hadn't seen his videos in years, like literal years, right? For whatever reason, his process videos, or one of his recent process videos, came up on my feed on YouTube recently, and I was watching the video, and I was like, now I remember Crayola being very, like, really skilled and really good, right? Because it wasn't looking the way that I needed it to look, or the way that I expected it to look at that particular time. But as this video progressed, you sort of watch the process of him creating, and then it all came together sort of suddenly, right? So he had created this what looked like a poster, And he made it eventually look like it was sort of bursting out of concrete or something like that. It was really neat by the end of it. But I was like, why did he paint white over the post? All that work he just did, right? Because I didn't know where he was going with it, and I wasn't trusting the process. But of course, he did a bang up job, very beautiful job on his artwork, as he always does, or as I remember him always doing. All right, so got that flat enough, that'll work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, on this layer, and I'm going to do this on a separate layer just in case I don't like it and I don't want to have to repaint that gold bit. So on a new layer, we're going to have a new layer. I'm going to actually select this strap by hitting the Windows button on my keyboard, because I have a Windows keyboard, but this would be a control button if you're using an Apple, not control, excuse me, command. Is it command? No, it'll be control. I was right. Either be command or control, one of them. So you hit that button and then you click on the layer that has the information that you want to select. Now with that selected, I'm going to hit the keyboard key G, right? That's going to bring up a gradient. I already have a gold gradient, I believe. Yep, have a gold gradient. I am going to go back to my character who is in the woods, and I'm going to pay attention to how the light hits his back. That is going to help because within this gradient I have dark spots and I have light spots, just like we have in our here I'll show you in our Knight of Cups. As soon as it thinks about it, we'll go back really quickly. Because I don't want a super strong highlight in this area, I want it to sort of be neutral because his back is pretty neutral. But let me show you. Hopefully it'll come up soon. While it does that, just as a reminder, I'll show you guys what the Cosmic Gateway 0 looks like. Because the computer wants to think about it. And as it shows that, I'll sort of work my way through. But this again is the Cosmic Gateway 0. 39 cards done, so we're officially halfway done with this particular deck. Very excited about that. Man, I did not see that coming. I actually did not even see sort of the way that the Four of Swords is progressing. I did not see that coming as well, so I'm really happy with that. Now there is a wait list if you are interested in sort of being notified like first thing. It's going to be a while, right? Which is of course wasn't expected, but it'll be a while before we go into sort of notifying everyone that this is going into print and all of that. But there is a wait list. I have to get back active with that because what that will do is give you some more behind the scenes information about sort of the production process of this. So if you would like to join that wait list, that link is in my in the sort of description below this video. All right, so now what I was pointing out, in his sleeve, it has a shadow area down at the bottom, and it has sort of a light reflected area, and then it has sort of the shadow at the top. So we kind of have a round color, right? Now, when I'm looking at this mannequin as our 3D model, I'm sort of paying attention to the area that this strap is and how the light hits the area. I don't think I have to overthink it too much. I'm just going to sort of drag this in a way, not quite like that. So what I'm going to do is rotate my canvas so that this is mostly straight. Now this is a curved line, so there's going to be a little bit of finessing going on, but we're going to sort of get the light as close to what we would like as possible, right? Nope. And we'll just keep playing with it until we get sort of the colors that we like and sort of the lighting that we like. So something like that, but I kind of want a little more variation, so I'm going to make that a little bit shorter. Don't like that. Let me go back. I'm gonna go back to the first one that we did. That one's okay. No. So I'm looking at all of the ones that we've done so far. No. So we're gonna keep trying until we get this gradient as close to what we like as possible, right? I don't want it super soft. I want to have the same, level of variety as we have. But I guess what I really should pay attention to is what part of the gradient I'm getting, right? So for now, let's stick with this. I think. Let me go back a couple of options and make sure. So this could work. Actually, you know what? I think I'm gonna play with this. All right, so here's our gradient. Now it looks wonky for sure. So what we're gonna do is go back to my Knight of Cups. I'm going to pay attention again to his sleeve, and then I'm going to try my best to emulate that as best as I can. Now, I did this gradient. On top of this gradient, I'm going to interrupt it a bit because I want it to make sense for this particular item. What I'm going to do that is to grab my chalk brush, and then I'm just going to play, right? I'm going to pay attention to where I want the shadow so it kind of comes over. So I'm going to pick up, matter of fact, I think I might. Should I pick up colors? All right, so before we do that, let's do this. Before I do that, let's do this. So typically what happens is when I use this gradient, because I don't like how harsh that particular yellow is, what I will do is go into tonal correction, and I'm going to grab hue, saturation, and luminosity. Now I use this menu a lot, right? Because it allows me to change the color. It allows me to change the saturation and sort of the brightness of it, of a color or of a section fairly quickly. So what I would like to do is warm this up a bit. Just a little bit, something like this, more coppery in tone. I don't necessarily want copper, but I don't necessarily want that yellow, right? So that looks a little bit warmer. That's fine with me. Now, on top of this, because again, if I don't like what I'm about to do, then I can go back and change it. So on top of this layer, I'm going to grab my chalk brush, and I'm going to pretty much destroy this this beautiful gradient. I am going to manipulate it quite a bit. All right, so what I'm wanting to do is I'm actually going to grab and tailor one of these colors. We're going to add a little bit of dimension to this. Now I don't like how that's looking, so and that's a little bit too strong. So what I'm doing is sort of making the gradient go in the direction that I want it to go, but with a little more intention, right? All right. We can sort of play with it a bit. And we want to keep the essence of it, right? I want to keep sort of the color and all of that, but I want this to sort of read like so. I want to bring this color down a little bit. And I can actually do this. So if I turn this off, I can actually do this a couple of ways. I can manually do it, which is what I'm doing with the chalk brush. I can also take my smudge brush, right? Because this is going to have all kinds of texture in it anyway. I can actually take this, wrong thing. I can actually take this smudge brush and drag the colors where I want it to go, right? So if I want to add texture, which I do, I can sort of drag the colors and play with it this way. And that helps out a lot. I probably should have duplicated this, but that's fine. I like how it looks. So something like this, right? So I'm altering the gradient that we've established, but I'm keeping the same color. So I'm just sort of blending them out in a way that gives me the direction that I want, right? It's also giving me quite a bit of texture, which is great because we're going to be adding texture later. So even if this looks rough, that's perfectly okay, because by the time we finish with this, it's going to have like the pillowing, it's going to have sort of that chalk brush look. And now we can go back to our chalk brush layer. I'm actually going to start it over. So let's see what we have. And yeah, we're going to erase what we have. Now what I'm going to do is take that chalk brush. Now we can really emphasize some of these colors, right? So let's take this brown and drag it down just a bit, like so. Something like this. If I want to, I can grab this nice rich color and add that as well, right? Don't necessarily like how that looks, so we're just playing with it. Again, I'm not necessarily reaching for perfection so long as I'm getting fairly close to what I'm after, right? Fairly close. And again, it doesn't have to be super precious, because all of this is going to be the sort of the background texture. I just want to make sure that the colors are where I want them to be. Alright, now from here, I'm going to actually do a new layer as soon as it auto saves. And then on top of that new layer, I'm going to start to lay in the grid. So that you lay in this sort of grid color. And I'm not really sure because it's been a couple years since I did this particular texture, but I feel like I laid in the grid fairly lightly and then I went over and emphasized it with whatever color I needed to emphasize it with. I don't recall if that was on its own layer or not. I guess what we could do, just to analyze it a bit, is we could actually open up the Knight of Cups just to sort of see. So maybe we'll do that. So as soon as it auto saves, I'll do that, and then that'll kind of help me out quite a bit to see how exactly I did this. Right, if I did not combine the layers, which happens. So if I didn't, hopefully best case scenario, I'll be able to kind of see exactly what I did. I can kind of tell, but I want to make sure before I go any further. So let's see if I have that available for us to look at. Let's see. So we'll just kind of pay that attention. So again, I hope you guys are having a great day today. I'm feeling a little more chill, so I'm not super energetic. Just sort of not going through the motions, but like, just getting the work done. So I hope that you guys are, doing something sometime this week or sometime last week. I hope you guys had an opportunity to work on something that you care about deeply, something that you absolutely want to do, something that feeds you and makes you feel good and motivated and keeps you inspired and all of that. So it's taking a little bit of time. So what we'll do, did it come up? Oh, where'd it go? There it is. Okay, so I'm going to open this. It's going to take a minute to open it, but I want to just do a gentle reminder of our contest that we had recently. So last Sunday, I opened up a giveaway for anyone to enter so long as you follow one of the 2 rules, and I'll show you just a bit. Let me get this opened. What are we looking for? The Knight of Cups. So this is going to take a minute to open, and while it does, I'll tell you guys who won the giveaway, because we had some really great entrances to it, and I want to thank everybody. Man, I really appreciate it. Everyone who entered, you guys had such thoughtful sort of responses to the giveaway and to the rules. So just as a reminder, where are we at? Let's look at this. So I hosted a giveaway where there were 2 rules. You had to be a Instagram follower, as well as tell me in the comments your favorite card from the Cosmic Gateways Tarot and why that's your favorite card. So it didn't have to be anything fancy. I just sort of wanted to know what you guys liked and connected to and why you connected to it. So we had some really awesome responses, and I want to thank each and every one of you guys for responding to that, and for, I don't know why I got this going. Hold on. All right, for responding to that, as well as participating. Man, it just made my heart smile so much. I don't know, sometimes you sort of overthink things. I was like, I hope somebody enters. I had some great entrances. So the winner to that, and I'll show you guys, if you have not seen the video yet, I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. But the winner of it is Lee. Lee did such a beautiful response. It was so thoughtful. And everybody's responses, everyone's answers, everyone's favorite card was extremely thoughtful and heartwarming, and so much. I really appreciate it so much. So I'll show you some of the responses that we get, and there were only a few, but I really appreciated Lee. So Lee, if you're watching, I'll be reaching out to you this week to get your portrait ready so we can get that set up. So the prize was to win a portrait that I'll be painting live during our Wednesday stream. And I want to again thank you, each and every one of you guys, so much for entering. It's taking a little bit of time. I guess I got a lot going on on my computer. But now, if you have not, what I'll do, rather than show you guys the responses, if you have not had an opportunity, go check out last Sunday's live stream, because you'll get to see everyone's response, right? Everyone's favorite card, why it was their favorite card. And what I really love and appreciate about this, and which was one of the reasons why I wanted this to be one of the rules, is because you guys will see things in these cards I did not consider. Right, I didn't see it, and I think that speaks to the power of the medium, and it speaks to the power of art in general, because art is such a subjective medium. And so what you see in it, I may not see it until you tell me about it, and then I'm like, oh, that's a great observation. Or what I see or intend, you may not see. And so to have you guys give such thoughtful answers and see so much in these cards so far has been just a wonderful experience. Now, what we have here. So congratulations, Lee. And Lee, just in case you're not here for this now, I'll announce it again at the end. So I really appreciate you guys for entering. Man, just, oh man, when I read, like, just when I read you guys' answers, I was just blown away. For instance, one of the entrances favorite cards was the devil. And so he sort of, or this person, I don't know if it's he, she, they, or them, but they pretty much described the sort of attachment, but from their perspective, they were in it together, even though they were attached, even though they were overindulging, even though there was so much opulence, and even though the our normal take on that card is over attachment too much, right? Being able to see someone or sort of hear the perspective of that might be true, but they're in it together, I thought was such a well thought out response. You know what I mean? So I thought that was really, really awesome. So if you guys have not had an opportunity, please go and check out some of those entrances, and don't be afraid to tell me what your favorite card is, even though the contest is over, even though we've announced our winner. Again, congratulations, Lee, on that. Let me know what your favorite cards are and why they're your favorite cards. If you read something in the cards that I'm creating now that maybe I don't see, let me know about it. I would love to hear about it. All right, so this is the Knight of, who is this? Knight of Cups. Now, he may look quite different in the file as opposed to the image. The file is set up for CMYK. So we talked about a little bit about this, I think either last week or the week before, when we're setting up files and doing or getting things ready for print. You do that in a separate color mode than you would be for something on screen. So when I did this particular version of the image, I knew that I was going to be using it to show what the card looks like on screen. So I didn't want it to feel as dull as a CMYK file looks. But this is typically what the CMYK looks like, right? All right, now what I'm looking for is how the heck I did this particular texture. Now I can zoom in, and again, what I am seeing is sort of the baseline gradient. So this is the gold gradient that we laid in. I'm also seeing on top of it some texture, and I can't tell if it's texture that, it looks like it's texture within each of the grids. But what I'm looking for specifically is how I laid out the grid. So I don't recall if I did like laid it out and then drew on top of it. I have no idea if I did that. So here are his arm guard cuffs. Let's see what that looks like. What is this? I'm just going to turn off layers and turn them on just until I can kind of see what exactly is going on, and then I can go from there. All right, and then we'll have to close it down because this file is huge and we don't want to interrupt our stream as we sort of move through it. So let's see. What I can do is select it. Nope. Yes, it is. Okay. So that looks like some of the texture. Okay, that is the overall shape. Huh. What is this? Nope, wrong thing. What is this? So it looks like I combined everything. So that's not quite helpful. But zooming in, it looks like I laid in the gradient, which we did, right? And again, it looks like I drew out sort of the grid that I wanted to use for the texture. Now here's something very important, because earlier we touched on this just a bit. You don't have to render every single thing. So in this area you don't see the grid as clearly as you do in some of the other areas, but when we zoom out, it all looks like it's a part of the same thing. So okay, so what I'm going to do is close this out. Let's do that really quickly, and don't want to save it because we don't want to mess that up. Alrighty, so what I'm going to do then instead is I am going to make sure that we're on the right layer. So this is all detail, and so I'm gonna combine these two things here, combine it, and we're going to call this strap base gradient, right? All right, now I am going to draw in on a separate layer the grid, and I chuckle every time I say separate layer because you guys know that I am queen layers, right? I love a good layer. I am a very pro layer, right? And then you just combine them and erase them when you're ready to do something different, or when you want to sort of lessen the size of your file. What I'm looking for is my 2D pencil. I'm going to zoom in again just to kind of see. It just looks like a basic diamond. So I'm going to go to a grid color, or a gray color I should say, sorry, not a grid color. And then from here I'm going to begin to sort of lay out the basis of this grid. And it's a diamond pattern. And I want to select this so I don't go outside of it, right? So it's a diamond pattern. So something like this. And we want to give it a little more shape, so we don't want it to be like straight up and down lines. We do want to give it a little more shape because, again, this is sort of curving along his back, right? And if we give it a little more shape and texture so that we're not just straight up and down, it'll add depth to our overall texture, right? Now, I'm drawing this in, and the goal here in a bit is going to be to draw sort of on top of it. So even they don't even have to be evenly spaced out, right? Because this is a strap along his back. We'll rotate the canvas as we go. And then we're just going to set this to multiply, and then we'll start to add some of that extra texture and things like that within our belt. So this may be a short live stream. I'm not really sure, but again, if you're watching this live or the replay, I hope that you're doing well. And again, if you're having just sort of a hard time right now, you are not alone. You are certainly not alone. So I just want you guys to keep going and to start to dream, right? Because again, right now, everything is sort of, I feel like we're in a big reset. And so as such, use this time wisely to begin to dream and to think about a future different from your present, right? And different from maybe anything that you're used to. And don't be afraid to dream big while you're doing it. All right, so it looks like I do something like this, right? So already we're sort of adding a little bit of curve to the back of this. And then we'll just fill in the rest of the lines. And we're going to do it something like this. And that looks good. All right, so this is sort of the foundation of our snakeskin pattern. And if I want to clean it up, so for instance, I don't really like how this looks, this area here looks, let me just go back in and clean that thing up, right? Like so. Doesn't have to be perfect, because now what we're going to do is we're going to set this, we're going to lower the opacity like so, and then in between each of the sort of creases, I'm going to paint in a little bit of texture, right? And then we'll get rid of that, and then we'll be done with it. So I'm going to choose a color. What we'll do really quickly is make sure that we're good. Like so. Alrighty. Uh-oh. My rotation is out of control. Where are we at? There we go. Just a little bit more. All right, now from here, what I think I want to do is I actually am going to choose a color from our reference, and I'm going to lower the saturation because I can kind of tell that this is a lot more saturated than I would like for it to be. I want to get something somewhat close, and we'll see how this looks. No, not quite. Alrighty. Alright, here we go. Let's see. I'm going to get sort of a neutralish color. We're just going to add it to the creases. And that's not quite dark enough, so we're going to go darker. Like so. I want it to show up. And we're just going to touch the top of each of these diamonds, right? So it may seem a little bit tedious, but that's sort of how it goes, right? We just want to touch, and we'll change the darkness and lightness and the value of each of these as we sort of progress through the gradient itself, right? We're going to do it something like this. We want to go a little bit lighter. Like so. And I'll just kind of show you what it looks like with this particular section, and then I may call it a stream and just do it off stream, but I'm just going to show you sort of the idea, right? So just like we have dark at the top in the top parts of the pyramids, not the pyramids, of the of the diamonds, we also want to add light, right? Like so. So we can pick up colors from our gradient. So in these darker areas, we might add light such like this. Emphasize it this way. And again, this does not have to be perfect by any means. We just want it to make sense to the base, right? So if our base is, because we already did such great work in managing the color of our base, we want to make sure that we keep that the same. So this is a darker color, so I might add that to the top. And I'm keeping this fairly consistent, so all of the dark colors go at the top and all of the lighter colors are going to go sort of at the bottom. And once we finish, we're going to highlight or add highlights, and we're going to add a little bit of shadow to the lines that we've already laid down. Then we'll get rid of those lines, and then we'll kind of see what we have and how we like it. And if this works the way I think it's going to work, because I never know until we try it, right? We should have that same texture. So this is sort of how I do it. And yes, again, for each one of these diamonds, I have to go through this exact same process. And then what we could do is we can take one of our smudge brushes, whichever one we like. I'll probably take smudgy just because that's one of my favorites, my go-to smudge brush. And we can go in and manipulate where we place the color. So it looks like it's going to auto save. Is it auto saving? Nope. Okay. All right. Oh, it's freezing up on me. All right. Looks like it's freezing. Come on now. I want to show you. So before it freezes and goes all haywire, what I'll do is actually show you how we'll finish up this texture, right? So what I would do is, in this case, I will establish based on my reference where my shadows and lights are, and I believe it's sort of a shadow toward the right side of his back. So what we'll do is add sort of shadows along this line. We'll add highlights on the other side just to get it to look like puff texture, and then we'll call it a day. There he is. Okay, so yeah, it looks like it's fairly shadowed here, a little bit of light in this way, so we're going to take all that into consideration. I'm going to, I don't know why I'm switching between but I'm going to choose a color, a darker color, and then I'll go over these lines, sort of following again the guideline from my Knight of Cups, and then we'll go from there, and then we'll call it a stream. So again, if you're watching this live for the replay, I really appreciate you for being here. And my computer is thinking about it. Come on, computer, because I want to show this off. We may not be able to. Oh dang, there it is. Okay. Alrighty, so I'm going to take the shadow color. I'm actually going to increase the saturation of it. I am going to sort of start to go in between each of these layers, right? So even though we just did this grid, yes we just did it, we're going to sort of go in between, what did I do? We're going to go in between each of the diamonds, right? So just like so, and add a little bit of shadow and depth. Now if that's not dark enough, and it may not be, we'll go darker, right? We'll just sort of outline areas like so. It's pretty much tracing what we've done so far, right? Something like this. So I'll do this little area just to show you guys the technique to get this particular look. and then I'll let my computer take a little bit of a break and then I'll get back to it. And by next week we'll probably be starting, if we're not starting on the new card, and not working on this card, what we'll probably do is work on the Four of Swords. So I'll show you guys what that looks like here in a bit, because I made some good progress with the flats. I do it again. I really enjoy those Wednesday streams because they're pretty relaxing. I think this one was a pretty relaxing stream today. I believe so. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure that you hit a thumbs up. That helps me out so much. It truly does. Now that I'm sort of learning the intricacies of YouTube and sort of how it all works together and fits together and what metrics they use, it does help. Because something else I've noticed, just sort of me, experimenting and trying different things. When I look up Paint With Me Live, my videos don't come up, which I find very interesting, right? They do not come up. You can type in my username, B. Lewis Arts. That will come up and you'll sort of see whatever the latest video is that I produced or put out. But if you were to like just type in the name of this particular stream, for whatever reason, it will not come up, right? So by you guys hitting the like button, that helps me out. That helps me show up. For people who may not otherwise be able to find me or who may not be shown my videos, because that happens. Now, does that happen on purpose? I don't know. Right? I have my sort of speculation about it, but it does happen. So if you guys would like to help me out in that arena, sort of help people find me, find this project, don't hoard it, don't gatekeep, let them know, right? Hit the like button. That helps me out so much. All right, so now what I've done is sort of laid in that shadow color, right? And in between, next to the shadow colors, on the same side, so I want to make sure that I keep it consistent, I am adding a highlight color. And so that's going to give me this sort of armored look. Now, again, I can go into my texture brushes, or my smudge brush, and what I would do is find that layer that I have all of the the highlights and shadows, and I can play with it in a way that gives me sort of that puffy look. So this is what it looks like if I turn it off. If I turn it back on, we have again our shadow sort of in the corner, and we have our highlight at the top. And because we're making those little sections with the shadow flat line and the highlight, we're getting these segments, right? So it kind of looks like snake skin. It kind of looks, well, I want it to look puffy, but I guess because of the way I have the diamonds drawn in this particular one, it doesn't give quite that. But I do like the segments. I do like the sections. I like that this feels like snake skin. I like that, right? So this is sort of how I achieve that look. And I will do this for each of the segments. So this is going to take me a while to do, but it's fun. It's very relaxing. It's very nice to do. So I'll do this same technique throughout the entire sort of grid that I set up and made here. And by the end of it, once I add all the scraps and scrapes and the splashes and all of that good stuff, you guys will sort of see next week if I'm finished with it. If not, we'll be right back here on it. But you guys will be able to see sort of the process of what it looks like. So what all of that hard work and all of those little odds and ends and tidbits and things like that looks like when it comes together. So just as a reminder of what the Four of Swords looks like, just in case you guys missed last Wednesday's live stream, in the Four of Swords, pretty much laid down flats, right? So my flat layers help set the scene. I really like how this picture is coming out, and we have some really great interactions there. So if you guys are just needing some music to listen to or want to watch me work and paint and do all of those things, be sure to join me on next Wednesday as we work our way through that. So this is the progress for the Four of Swords. So I really like where this is going. Again, with this card, all I did, my whole goal was to sort of lay down color foundations. Now, because of this, the references that I'm using, because of the story that I wanted to tell, it does feel quite moody. I want it to feel moody, so that's really a good positive thing for me. It sort of goes with the goal. The background right now, everything looks relatively flat. As soon as it finishes opening, looks like something is auto saving, not sure what I did actually have an opportunity to render were the screens at the top of sort of like the screen windows and the antler or the horn that's on the back of the where the three swords are hanging off. So I was able to add a little more detail to it. I'm not finished back there, so I'll probably work my way forward. So this is the flat without the sketch. If I were to turn on the sketch, you guys, let's show you what that looks like. So I don't know that I've done any men or male characters in my deck with locks, so this is going to be a lot of fun to do with locks. So the only two characters I have with locks are the it's Justice and the Queen of Pentacles, and I did that because at the time I had locks. So those were sort of reflections of myself. But I really like this. So my idea is to have the background be very bright. I want it to be extremely bright. I want it to feel, I'll show you some of the references I have for it. I want it to feel very meditative. So this is my sort of room reference for the most part, right? So I don't want it to be exactly like this, but I did take like the rugs and the floors and the two screens at the top, and then I sort of modified it to fit this particular card. So I like this. I like how it looks. This is my 3D model reference for this particular card. In the background is extremely bright. That is exactly what I want to achieve in this card. I want the background to be very, very bright. Think similar to the Lover's card, because the Lover's card also has a gateway window sort of like this, where you look out and there is this beautiful garden, but we're paying more attention to what's going on inside. With him, this was set up to be, so this is sort of what I'm looking like. So the inside is going to be relatively dark and moody, just like the rest of the Cosmic Gateways the rest of the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. I do have a tendency to work dark, but I do want it to feel moody because this card deals a lot with contemplation. So I am using the Japanese ritual of Harikiri as an inspiration for this. Now, whether or not this is actually what he's going through, I don't know. You know, it depends on the reading, but I want it to feel like not necessarily an action is taking place, but that the thought of an action is taking place, right? So he is contemplating what to do with this sword. He has the three swords hanging behind him, and behind I just want it to be lush and beautiful and green and bright, and I want him to have sort of that rim light around him that glows, and I see really beautiful things to this card. So here are these are some of the references that I have for it, and so that's going to be a whole lot of fun. While I was working on this on Wednesday, I did cycle through a couple of ideas in terms of the color that he's wearing. So we went with the red. My son helped me sort of make that decision. I was going to have him in black and white because I remember when I was researching kente cloth, that the notion was that black and white kente cloth signified death. I don't know if I want to go that on the nose, and I guess even then you probably wouldn't know unless you knew about that. I also did not want it to look like he was wearing a gi, like he was in a martial artist wearing like a karate gi or anything like that. I didn't want it to look like that, so we went with red. I do foresee it being very colorful. I was thinking about channeling the African American flag, which is red, black, and gold, for his attire. So we may go that route. The rug right now is on green, so we may play with that. I'm not really sure, but this is the card that I work on during the Wednesday streams. Again, if you like something very calm and chill and very music heavy and oriented where we can just chat, right? Wednesday streams at about 12:45 p.m. Central. So the next one will be on July 9th. I would love to have you there. Again, Sundays is usually the day that I work on the Cosmic Gateways Tarot. For right now, Sundays and Wednesdays are the 2 days, but Wednesday will be sort of open to whatever I'm working on. So right now it's just the tarot day. But so when we paint our winner of the contest, so again, congratulations, Lee, if you're watching, congratulations. Thank you so much to everyone who entered that contest. And if you would like to read their entrances, please go back to last Sunday's live stream to read through the comments and to see sort of what people like about the Cosmic Gateways Tarot and how they connect to the cards. And if you would like to add a response to that, you're more than welcome to. I read each and every comment, and I love that so much. Please, please do that. But we will be working on Lee's portrait on Wednesday, so that'll be really, really awesome. I already kind of have some ideas of what I would like to paint for her once she sends over her reference photo, so that's going to be a whole lot of fun. So whether you're watching this live or the replay, again, I really appreciate you for being here. Just as a recap, all that we did today was we worked on our male character. I sort of tightened up the flats on his costume, added some highlights and shadow to his arm and neck, and changed the color of his hair. So I really like how he's coming along. I am going to continue to work on the snakeskin look of his sort of strap. Really like how that's coming along. So again, as I work through that, each of these segments I'm going to go through and highlight and add shadow and do the shadow lines and all of that. So by the time we see this card again, that'll be done. I'm aiming to go on and finish this thing. If not, we'll be back on it next Sunday. And again, so Wednesday we'll be working on the Four of Swords. So again, if you're watching this live of the replay, I really appreciate you for being here. Please do be sure to hit the thumbs up. There are 5 people watching. I only have 3 likes. I need 2 more. Please hit that like button. It helps me out so much. So until next time, I hope you guys have a happy, creative, and prosperous day. Please be well. Please be kind to yourself. Please show yourself compassion during this time. And so until then, peace.